Okay, ready? Hi, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Nikki.
We got married in July of 2016. At the time, I was in school, so unfortunately we weren't able to enjoy a honeymoon right after our marriage. So we had planned to take an adventure, go kayaking in Lake Powell during the break between my semesters in August. So that trip that we had planned started something kind of like this, and then it ended something kind of like this.
So we drove down to Lake Powell, and when we got there, I kind of had a headache, but that's pretty normal for car rides. And so we kayaked across the lake and slept for the night. And when we woke up, I was so dizzy that I could barely stand. So we decided to kayak back over. We went into town. I took some medicine and slept for a little while. And when I woke up, I felt okay. So we went back down to the lake and set up camp again. And then in the middle of the night, I woke up and just had this horrible splitting headache that I couldn't move. I could barely open my eyes. It was awful. So we decided that we were just going to drive home the next morning.
So we packed up all our stuff. Nikki, with a splitting headache, had to kayak across the lake again. We loaded up as fast as we can. I drove as fast as I could to get back into our hometown. We ended up getting a CAT scan, got a couple other tests, and wound up in the ER in the middle of the night. It was a pretty scary experience for both of us. We didn't know what was going on. Nurses were wearing masks and taking spinal taps and blood tests, and doctors were coming in saying we had things like Zika virus, that she had West Nile virus, that she had meningitis. They listed off a ton of different things that they thought it might be. We had the infectious disease doctor come in. Eventually he decided that it was nothing that was going to be contagious, that it was probably something similar to meningitis. Unfortunately, none of the test results came back positive, so we don't know exactly what it was. But it really set Nikki back. She had to miss the first week of school. She had constant headaches for months after that. So we decided that we wanted to try it one more time. We wanted to have a trip that we could enjoy. So we planned a trip to go through the Utah Big Five, the 5 national parks here in Utah.
Mm-hmm. So we decided to start in Moab, drove down, and we were looking for somewhere to camp for the night. And so we started driving up this mountain, really. And there was a kind of 100-foot cliff on one side, and it was rocky. And when we got up to the spot where we were going to camp, there was a sign that said no camping. And so we decided to drive back down to a spot that we had seen previously. And we were driving, and then all of a sudden, Kevin stopped the car, looked at me with this terrified look on his face, and got out and started looking at the car. And I had no idea what was going on. And it was the middle of the night, and we're just stopped on this cliff. And he got back in the car and said, "Hey, I don't think we have brakes." Turns out the brake line had snapped. And so we were kind of stranded up there.
So luckily, her grandfather used to live in Moab and called up a friend of a friend, was able to tow us off this cliff and get us into town. He also was able to loan us an old truck that he had, an old 80s Ford truck. And we were able to go into the canyon to Arches the next day. The truck gave us a couple problems. It was having a tough time going uphill, but we figured it was just an old truck and it'd be okay. As we drove through the park, we were able to take some time, do some hikes finally, and enjoy ourselves a little bit. But shortly thereafter, it wound up trying to go uphill and the truck just wouldn't go. It died out, couldn't get it started again, couldn't make it go anywhere. So we decided to turn around, tried to make it out of the park, and it just couldn't go. The truck wouldn't go anywhere. We were able to flag down a truck that was driving by, and the couple that was in there graciously towed us out of the park. So the second time we got towed, and towed us into town. By that point, the truck was running again. We thought everything was functioning well enough that we could take it to the mechanic and get our car that had been fixed and be on our way. But as we were trying to drive, the truck again just died on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm. So we were about 1.5 miles from the shop, and so we just decided to walk. We got our car, which was working, let them know that the other one was on the side of the road, and just decided to go. So we went to Canyonlands that day and camped outside of Capitol Reef. And then the next morning we saw Capitol Reef National Park and drove to Grand Staircase National Monument, where we were hoping to do some slot canyons. But it was raining so hard that the road was impassable, and so we decided to bag that and just go to Bryce National Park. When we got to Bryce, there was a blizzard. It was awful. You couldn't see 10 feet in front of you, and so we decided to bag that as well and just go to Zion's. And we got to Zion's, drove through, and camped there for the night.
The next morning, we woke up super early because we wanted to try and enjoy as much time as we could in Zion National Park. And about a mile from the entrance of the park, Nikki looked over to me because she was driving, and she said, Kevin, we had a quarter tank of gas in the car, didn't we? And we looked over, and the entire dashboard was blank. The speedometer wasn't working, gas gauge, RPMs, oil pressure, everything. None of the electrical was working. So, kind of freaking out, we pulled off to the side of the road, turned the car off, tried to turn it back on. All that would happen was a couple glitches, lights would flash, and then the back hatch would open up. But the car wouldn't start, couldn't get it to do anything. Called the mechanic, no answer. It was Sunday, of course, so no one was going to answer anything for us. But we were in a kind of small town, so we decided maybe he's a member of the local church. So we decided to hike the 2 miles and go to that church and see if we could find someone that could help us.
So at first it was kind of discouraging, nobody there. They just kind of told us to call the mechanic. And we were about to call his brother to drive the 4 hours to tow us home. And this guy walked up and asked how we were, and we explained what happened, and he said he would go talk to someone, and came back with this guy who happened to own the towing company in town. So he went and tested our car. Turns out the alternator wasn't working, but his son worked at Napa Auto Parts in a town about half an hour from there. So he drove us there, we bought the alternator, came back, and they installed it in our car. And at that point, we decided not to push our luck and just drove home. And in the end, it was kind of a funny trip. It's a fun story to tell, but we really would like to have a honeymoon that we can just enjoy, that we can relax, and we need a do-over.
Yeah, we could really use a do-over. So hopefully it's us.